and use your own free will to search for why the church teaches what it does. That's when my eyes opened. I couldn't understand what was wrong with artificial birth control till I found out the pill can actually potentially cause abortions. So can the IUD, and that it's a number one cancer causing agent, and on and on. And then truth rolls out that you didn't know, or truth rolls out of the damage to the human soul and psyche and relationships and being able to bond with the person if you have sex outside of marriage, the demons that show up. There's so much to learn that is the opposite of what you'll find on your television set. So do yourself a favor and wrestle with the teachings rather than just absorb what the world is telling you about the teachings.
Amen.
You got to turn off. Go also into truth, just like you said, Christine, to turn off the TV, stop listening to the media, stop listening to what you think might be the truth, and actually search into it. I've done several shows with Dr. Joe Malone, who's an expert in women's sexual health. And he talks specifically about how the biology and the physiology of the body, specifically, we're talking about females at this point, it points to the truth of God. It points to how a man's sperm will enter a woman's body, and she protects that as if that is her own, the first person she's with. And then the other men that may come into her body after that are seen as enemies. And Dr. Joe Malone explains that so very well. As a matter of fact, I'll put a link in the show notes so you can listen to that. But what we're saying is, anytime something is a truth of God, if you shut out the outer world and you go and you listen to truth, you seek out truth, you will find it, because it always is in line with God's teachings. And this is one of my places of expertise. And that's why I say God will always make his truth known.
It was really horrible to find out that this pro-euthanasia film called The Room Next Door won a top prize in Venice and got a standing ovation, because it so masterfully and so beautifully explained the great compassion and love alongside allowing someone to die when they want to die. And someone who's not steeped in the teachings and understanding of that actually being evil, that's actually killing someone, will be completely fooled by such a movie, because people intrinsically, by and large, they want to do good. They want to help. They want to be compassionate. They want to give a person their own free will, which is God-given. Little do they know that this is a satanic deception, folks. God decides when someone dies. Of course, you want to give palliative care and make sure they're as comfortable as possible. But you don't allow a person and encourage a person and love a person by saying, yeah, commit suicide or I can kill you. It's the same language around abortion, women's health care, giving her freedom. It's all this language twist. It's so subtle, so deceptive, so loving. Don't think we're not going to be fooled. Don't think that you are not going to be fooled, because when it comes time to having so much social pressure on you and being told you're a hater and you're a bigot and you're evil, all of us might buckle under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, so you better start practicing now. If no one is calling you a bigot now, if no one is calling you hateful now, maybe it's because you haven't taken a bold enough stand yet. Maybe it's because you're cowering in your room thinking, oh, I'll wait until I retire. Oh, I'll wait until this or that happens. And then once that happens, you'll find another excuse to delay it even further until finally your particular judgment comes and you've never stood up for God's truth. We have to be prudent. I understand that as much as anyone. But the fact is, Jesus said, no servant is greater than his master. If they hated me, they will also hate you. But he also said, be of good cheer, for I've overcome the world. So we have nothing to be sorrowful or depressed about. But at the same time, we should expect to be slandered and hated for the things that we say. And if we're not, maybe it's because we're not opposing the culture enough.
That's why it's said, in the First Corinthians 6 that I just read. Do not be deceived. See, I think a lot of people have this understanding that, well, if I didn't know, God's going to forgive me. And I have heard one too many people say, God understands. God understands where I'm coming from. Yes, God does understand, but he's also going to look at you and say, you had access, especially for those of us living in 2024. You had access to knowledge. You had access to truth. So do not be deceived that idolaters, slanderers, fornicators, all these things that society accepts are not going to enter the kingdom of heaven. Christine and Daniel and even Mark are here to tell you, please pay attention. Go do your research. Go and find out what truth is, because when you stand before God, it is you and God alone. You and God alone. And hopefully Mother Mary on your side defending you as well.
God understands, and that's exactly the problem. That's what I respond to people who say God understands, to try to justify something they know is wrong. Yeah, he understands, and that's exactly the problem. So, you won't get away with anything when all the veils are removed.